The Batavia, a powerful ship of the Dutch East India Company, embodied the maritime ambitions of its time. It was a symbol of the naval power and dominance that the Netherlands sought in distant seas, a beacon of their expansive reach. Launched in 1628, it represented the cutting edge of shipbuilding technology. The Batavia was the embodiment of technological advancement and innovation in ship construction, a marvel of its era. Her mission to transport precious cargo and passengers to the Dutch East Indies. She carried the dreams of merchants and explorers, each hoping for fortune and adventure. This voyage held the promise of riches from the spice trade. Spices at that time were as valuable as gold, driving the engines of global commerce. But the Batavia's journey would be short and tragic. The winds and waves were not the only challenge she faced. Human treachery loomed large. Instead of commercial success, it would become synonymous with mutiny, brutality, and survival against all odds. The Batavia's story was one of betrayal and conflict, a dark chapter in maritime history. The Dutch East India Company, known as the VOC, held immense power. It controlled global trade with an iron fist, shaping the world's economic landscape. It monopolized trade between Holland and the East. Its ships sailed the oceans in search of wealth, establishing a vast network of commerce. The Batavia, one of its flagship vessels, reflected this power. It was a symbol of national pride and maritime prowess. Lavishly decorated and built to inspire awe, it was a floating masterpiece, a testament to the craftsmanship of its builders. Its hold carried not only spices but also silver intended for trade in the East. It was laden with riches, a treasure trove on the high seas. The Batavia's fate would reveal the dark side of colonial ambition and the fragility of human nature in the face of isolation and despair. It was a story of greed, humanity, and the harsh realities of life at sea. From the beginning, the Batavia's voyage was plagued by conflict. The strong winds and violent waves were just the start of the trouble. The ship seemed cursed from the outset. Two key figures, Francisco Pelsaert, the ship's commander, and Jeronimus Cornelis, the undermerchant, had a bitter rivalry. This wasn't just a small disagreement, it was deep and filled with hatred, affecting everyone on board. Pelsaert, an ambitious and experienced man, clashed with Cornelis, a charismatic but unstable apothecary with a troubled past. Each had their own agenda, which fueled the tension and distrust. Their animosity created a tense atmosphere on board. The crew felt anxious and fearful of the future, unsure of what might happen next. Adding to the tension was Lucretia van der Meilen, a young high society woman traveling with her husband. Lucretia was the center of attention, stirring jealousy and suspicion among the crew. Rumors spread among the crew of a planned mutiny against Pelsaert, possibly involving Cornelis, motivated by his desire for power and Lucretia. The rumors grew stronger each day, feeding the growing paranoia. This explosive mix of ambition, resentment, and opportunism paved the way for the horrors to come. The ship was about to meet its dark fate, a fate sealed by the seeds of disaster sown early in the voyage. In the dark of night on June 4, 1629, disaster struck. The sky was overcast and the sea was terrifyingly rough, with waves crashing violently against the ship. While sailing through the treacherous waters of the Houtman Abrolhos, a chain of islands off the coast of Western Australia, the Batavia ran aground. The journey was fraught with peril and uncertainty. Now the ship that was a symbol of Dutch power lay helpless on the coral reef. There was no escape from the relentless sea. Panic ensued as the crashing waves threatened to break the ship apart. The sailors were in chaos, struggling to maintain control. Over 200 survivors managed to reach the dry coral islands, desperate for safety. They were exhausted, terrified, and unsure of what lay ahead, but their ordeal was far from over. The challenges ahead were immense and daunting. Stranded with limited supplies and facing the harsh elements, they were thrust into a fight for survival. Staying alive was a daily challenge, with each day bringing new hardships. They didn't know that the true horror was yet to come, orchestrated by the very man who conspired against their commander. Danger was approaching, lurking in the shadows. Part 4. A long journey for rescue, Pelsaert's ordeal. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Pelsaert made a fateful decision. He would take the Batavia's small boat and seek help from the Dutch East Indies, leaving the survivors in the care of his officers, including Cornelis He embarked on a perilous journey across thousands of miles of open ocean. The voyage pushed Pelsaert and his crew to their limits. Weeks turned into months as they faced storms, hunger and thirst. With sheer determination, they reached their destination, the city of Batavia, present-day Jakarta, where Pelsaert reported the disaster and secured a rescue ship. He carried with him the burden of the survivors he left behind, unaware of the horrors that unfolded in his absence. Part 5. A Reign of Terror. Cornelis's grip on the survivors. With Pelsaert gone, Cornelis saw an opportunity to seize power. He orchestrated the murder of those loyal to the captain, eliminating any threat to his authority. He established a reign of terror, ruthlessly exploiting and murdering anyone who defied him. The stranded survivors became prisoners on their island refuge. Cornelis's cruelty knew no bounds. He transformed the islands into a nightmare. Men, women and children were subjected to unspeakable acts of violence fueled by paranoia and lust for power. The once hopeful community descended into a nightmare of fear and despair as Cornelis tightened his grip, his sanity unraveling with each passing day.